The chef is an artist in a way, like a giver of pleasure, but you're very much in a performance business here, aren't you? It's an interesting shift for you to have to make mentally to think, it's not just about how nice the food is, it's about what it can do for them on the pitch over 90 minutes.
Yeah, and so sometimes we go through that struggle of, well, where's the chocolate? And like, well, there's no chocolate. Like, where's this? There's no this. So sometimes it's also a relationship of trust between me and the players that, you don't need that. Like, there's no point to have that. But later on, we might bring it back, and they're trying to explain to them why we do it, and they're great with that. And it's always been a case of explaining and why we do it. Obviously, there's things that I remember. We do a white sauce, and a lot of them still say, "Oh, can we have some double cream?" Like, there's no double cream; it's white sauce. No, we have a white sauce, and what about the double cream? I said, "No, we do white sauce." And and we explain why we do it, and there's a reason. Because it's also an educational process to all of them.
Yeah, because presumably Glenn will confirm this, but some players think they can eat what they like because they're always going to burn it off. It's not necessarily the case, is it? You can, if you eat the wrong things, you could train every day, but you're still going to put on weight, aren't you?
Well, it's not only the weight, but it's what it does to your body. So the amount of calories is one thing, but the amount of good calories that you put it in is very different. So you can look at maybe chocolate bar and compared to an avocado and say, what, there's some calories here. It's totally different. What it does to your body, it's like different types of oils for a car are fine. If you want to be a Formula One car, you're going to have a very different oil. That is the tires are going to be very different. So that is the performance side of it. Is players are like Formula One cars. You need to have the best tires, the best engines, the best fuel, the best oils. But then for the day-to-day people, it's very different. That is the difference, and recovery and assistance.
You're very involved in the squad, aren't you? You chat to the players. You've got good relationship with a lot of the lads. Do you find yourselves educating the younger boys more so and teaching them about their diet and what's good and what's bad? Like you say, those calories there, to a normal young boy that steps into this this arena, he will not think anything of food. It's just one of those things to him. But like you say, the calories, they're very different when you go from, like you said, avocado to chocolate. Extremely different. So do you enjoy educating the younger boys about how to eat and what's good and what's bad?
Yeah, so a lot of it is done, like obviously Paola does an amazing job with them, the one-to-ones, and she does, the advice and what to do and when to go home. I'm lucky enough that this day now that I always have a good relationship with athletes, so they will ask things to do at home. I get the odd message saying like, what should I do with this? What can I do with that? And it is good because there's an interest in food. Obviously, some new players will arrive with different habits from previous clubs, from different cultures. So we have to adapt them and show like, right, no, this is time to do this and to do that. And there's a reason for that. And I think once you start to open that options to them, they get more involved and they'll ask more questions. And it is a different thing. And I think it's a build up. Like everyone can play football, but once you get a new manager or a new setup, you go, all right, now we play different. It's still the game. So the food is still food. It's teaching them like recovery, what you should do, what you should not do. And you build up on that.
This is a very cosmopolitan setup, the squad, the training ground. There's so many different influences from around the world. I mean, you've traveled a lot. You've got family members in different countries. Your mum is French, your dad Portuguese. I think that's right, isn't it?
Yep.
So I guess that helps you in a way relate to the different kind of cultural influences of the players and what they're wanting or inclined to eat. I mean, you've got a better understanding of global diets, haven't you, and global food.
Yeah, I'm quite lucky enough to speak a few languages, so it makes a huge connection with, French language players, Spanish language, Portuguese players, English. So it's quite easy for me to go from, speaking with Carlos Baliba in French to João Inigo in Portuguese to Barco in Spanish or to Lewis Dunk in English. So it's quite easy for me to go from one side to another. And it helps as well because sometimes when there's that barrier language, there's no questions made about certain things I can explain, I can help. And that is good. But also the traveling and knowing different part of the world and how people are with different habits. It helps me as well to understand a little bit how people are coming here.
So do you ever get boys coming up to you that miss a taste of home and they say, "Oh, can you make this for me? This is what my mum used to make," or "This is like our national dish"?
Yeah. There's we have a few requests. There's always a bit of a battle between the Argentinians and Brazilians about who there's the best meat.
Yeah.
That is a bit of a banter. I think it all depends who they are and what they ask for, and because we change so much the dishes that we try to be. I try to make sushi for Karu. I think he enjoys. He never said anything, but it's just always trying to balance it up. So we're trying to always have a menu that is more complicated in a way. So there's more elements to a dish. But then, if you want to have a Wagyu fillet, you can have it, or just a plain fish. But it's giving the options. But then it covers all the needs for any of them that have been training or not training. So that is, it's all covered, and that is the main thing with us is it's all covered. No one.
Well, you need to be careful. All these names and food you drop in, you're going to have customers at the front door before.
Yeah. The food world is full of myths, isn't it? Well, and obsessions. If you pick up any newspaper, they're constantly telling you what you can and can't eat and what's good for you, what's bad for you. Do you what people listening to this podcast? What advice would you give them about how to base their diet and how to kind of steer clear of these myths and these fashions?
Some top tips from a top chef.
Tips, exactly.
Yeah, I think
basic tips.
Whole food diet. So basically fresh products. You can try to be local. Local is always the best idea, but local can be depends on the prices. Obviously, we're quite lucky to have some good suppliers. So we very well supply on that way. So I can't really put anything to fault, but I think is making sure you don't eat processed foods. Obviously, go away from anything is refined as well. But then also people's life are different. I think it takes time to cook. It takes time to do things. But it also takes no time to do something healthy that you can eat straight away. So there's a bit of it's a very quick excuse to say, I have no time to do it. But then it takes 20 minutes to do a good healthy meal, or even less. So I think it depends how you want to manage your time.
Ultra processed food seems to be public enemy number one at the moment. Do you agree that that's the first thing that has to go if you want to eat healthily?
Yeah, but I think it is, but it goes with the lifestyle. So I think if we had a different lifestyle, things will be slower. And if it's slower, you have more time. And I think that goes back to, back in the days of maybe our parents, grandparents, there was time to do a lot of things because there was not so many things to do. And I think it goes around, we've been to Japan, and the lifestyle that they have around food and whatever they do is very healthy. They eat, they eat a lot of fish, they eat a lot of veg, they eat, the rice amounts are very small, and the processed foods are not really part of their diet. So that shows that you can be busy but also healthy.
Yeah.
That's one thing I noticed in Japan. Nobody overweight.
No.
Yeah.
Just sitting having a coffee, just people watching, just realised everyone's in, whether they're young, old, man, woman, all in really good shape.
And they also told me when I was there, so we were talking about fruits, and they were like, it was something to do with the grapes, and there was grapes everywhere. And they said to me at the hotel, they said, look, when it's grape season, as an example, there'll be grape cake, grape sauce, grape juice, grape alcohol, grape this, grape that. But then when it's finished, there's no more grapes. Then the next fruit comes in, and they're very keen on that. And I think that is a way, maybe we should do the same thing. When there's apples, we should just be based around apples. Should be apples everywhere. When it's pears, should be pears. When it's cherries, should be cherries. Then there is... Yeah.
Eat seasonally rather than get your fruit to travel 10,000 miles.
Yeah, exactly. You shouldn't get asparagus in October. But
the best jockey in the world, Ryan Moore, who's from Sussex, says his idea about food is if you can't grow it and you can't kill it, don't eat it. It's not a bad idea, is it?
Yeah, like these days you have to, you can grow your own veg. You can, like the hunter lifestyle will be you go out and you get your your animals, your fish, your veg, your fruits, and you eat by season. Just whatever nature will give to you. I think what we try to do is we try to show that we are very fresh, so everything is fresh. I normally say that, joking, is the only thing that we buy in is baked beans. But
are you pro or against baked beans? The way you said that,
I'm fine. I'm fine with it.
Because I remember and a lot of the German boys were like, "Oh, baked beans for breakfast." No,
see, I'm not a big fan. But I remember when we were planning Japan, we were like, "Oh, baked beans." But then the only one that is really keen about baked beans for the point is Louis Dunk. So,
yeah.
But he didn't went on the trip.
Say that.
What about ketchup? Because the England manager Fabio Capello came in, and almost the first thing he did was ban ketchup and all the players.
Oh, I've had that before.
The players were outraged.
Gus Poyet banned ketchup here.
Really? Is ketchup so bad?
I couldn't understand. I couldn't get my head round him banning ketchup. So we'd have, for instance, this is a long time ago, by the way, but we'd have like a cottage pie on a Friday night, and like you'd have a bit of ketchup with it. And he banned it, and I was like, what is the difference between one Friday at home and having cottage pie and having it smothered in tomato sauce, and then the next Friday away from home and getting cottage pie and not being allowed it?
Yeah.
That was it was a bugbear of mine. But I've had all sorts, coaches coming in banning butter, just like no butter in the training ground, just like real random, really like little niche things, and just think, is it going to make that big of a difference to people?
I think the abuse of the item. There's a good way to put it. Like,
I love that, the abuse of the item.
The abuse of the item is a very discussion topic. It depends because we were speaking with someone on the academy side the other day, and we were talking about that, and is the amounts of some of the honey that goes into the pancakes and stuff like that. It's a very educational process, and you can't always control it. But like the butter, there's small portions of butter, but if someone decides to use 8 portions of butter, that is individual. That is, I think you need to control it in a way that it's there, but it's not visible. I'm a fan of things like that. So if it's, you can have ketchup, but it's put it away.
Yeah.
It's not there, and because in some ways ketchup is good for you because of the amount of carbs and sugars that it has, but also you have to be a bit careful you don't get other ones to indulge in it and go like, oh, it's fine, I can do it. I think that is a balance of the abuse of the item.
I like that.
That's a good phrase. The psychology of it's interesting, though, because is it worth upsetting a player or a group of players over something so small?
So my point is that I didn't have tons of it on. I liked a little bit of it, but that's by the by. My point is that I would have it at home. I just wasn't allowed it here, and it was kind of like, well, you're not really changing anything, really. You're just upsetting my kind of process of getting ready for a game and kind of like, to a certain extent, your happiness. Like that like really annoyed me, and it would put me in a bad mood, sort of thing. Whereas I couldn't get it in my head, like, how can I have it at home but I'm not allowed to eat it? Like, you almost feel like a child.
Yeah, I think it must be a level control of, like, this is not good for you. I understand there's probably a mental release when you have it, as in like, after the games we normally are very open to things, as in, if they come in and they really knackered and it was a bad game and all this, I think there's no way you're going to control it because you're just going to do the worst. But at the same time, we know that the players will be very keen to get their nutrition sorted out, recovery, especially if you play Saturday and you have to travel and then you play Tuesday again. Yeah. So there's a big difference like between football and rugby on that, because rugby normally after the game is a few drinks, and the only one that doesn't drink is the bus driver, sort of thing. But then it's a release way of doing it. I think with us, we always balance. You hear all different stories from different clubs that they ban this, they ban that. I heard someone, he's not English, but I can't name it, another coach that banned anything that had flavour into food because he wanted them to be very plain.